Thank you for joining us on this webinar. We're from Thomas. Hopefully you probably know who Thomas are, but we'll talk more about that shortly. And we're going to be talking to you about team interaction optimization, which is a relatively new phrase and category that you'll be hearing a lot more of over the coming weeks, months, and indeed years. And what we're going to talk to you about today will help you to boost teamwork, but also, really importantly, human connection. And human connection, well, we'll talk more about that shortly. So let me start by just, we're going to introduce our speakers today. So we're going to do this slightly differently though. Normally each person introduces themselves, but today we're not going to do that. What we're actually going to do is I'm going to introduce my co-host, Mike Bailey, who is a senior product manager here at Thomas. And I'm going to talk you through some insights into Mike, and some of these insights are things that you'll have access to if you use the Thomas platform to help you to better understand your people. So using the platform, I know that Mike will be friendly and personable in his communications, and you'll observe that very, very soon. He's really results oriented, and when you're a product manager in a busy product organization, releasing lots of products, having a product manager who is results oriented and doesn't accept failure is really important. It's a key trait to have. But he's actually very charming and persuasive. So again, you'll notice that once he starts talking. And he loves those fast-paced environments like product teams often are, where they face a lot of constant change, because that's what product is all about. But he's also very independent. If he has a problem to solve, he'll find a solution, even if he has to bend a few rules. But now, over to you, Mike, to introduce.
Wonderful. Yeah, so I can now introduce Matt. So Matt Johns is Senior Product Marketing Manager at Thomas. And in terms of what to expect from him, he's extremely strong orientation towards people. He's extremely accommodating, and he communicates in an exceptionally persuasive and influential manner. He's highly agreeable and considerate of the needs of others. And he's also extremely pragmatic, prioritizing progress over perfection. So as I'm sure you can see from the contrast between these two people, between the two of us, Matt is definitely the smooth talker. So I'm going to hand back to him to talk through the agenda of what we're going to talk through today.
Thank you very much, Mike. So today we're going to start by giving you just a quick introduction to Thomas, in case you're unfamiliar or perhaps you've forgotten who we are. Then we'll talk about the employee-company disconnect, because that's a very real issue that's impacting businesses all around the world today. Then we'll introduce team interaction optimization, or TO as we like to call it. We'll look at the Thomas platform. I'll talk a bit about that, and then we'll hand over to Mike for the meat of this presentation, where he's going to give us a demonstration, so you get to see the power of proven people science within our platform. And then lastly, Mike will give you just a little bit of a peek behind the scenes of what could be happening in the future of TO. But let's dive in and talk about Thomas, because, well, we love to talk about ourselves, because we're actually a pretty cool company. We are a British Psychological Society, or BPS, accredited company. So it means that the science behind our platform and our assessments has been rigorously tested by an independent verifying company called the British Psychological Society. So that means that it's not just science that we made up down the pub on the back of an envelope one night. It's based on years of very rigorous, validated science. We've been around for over 40 years. We are not new to this game. We've got offices all around the world and a huge number of clients that are active around the world. And you can see just a small selection of some of the names that we work with at the bottom of the screen. But it's really key to note that we don't just work with big names like these. We work with companies of most sizes, from the biggest enterprises to some couple of hundred employees, and sometimes even a little smaller than that as well. So why are we talking about optimizing interactions within a team? The main reason is, and I'm sure none of you will argue, that the world of work's changed. We all know that. The pandemic really did accelerate that pace of change, and it made things just that little bit more different than we were used to, a lot faster than we'd hoped it might be. And while we've obviously changed the way we work to a degree, the fact that I'm talking to you from my home office, as is Mike, and I'm sure many of you are doing the same thing, we haven't changed the way we work enough yet. As a result of this, when you look at some stats released by Gallup just this month, only 23% of staff around the world are actually engaged and thriving in their job. That's a terrible statistic. 23%, that's less than a quarter of all working people are actually enjoying their job and taking part and bringing their best selves every day. We found through some surveys that we carried out that 54% of employees are considering changing their jobs within a year. And in fact, Gallup had a similar stat. They said it was 51%. So over half of all employees around the world are thinking about changing their jobs. So they're obviously not committed. But really tellingly, companies are losing money hand over fist because of lost productivity due to this disengagement. Over $8.8 trillion are lost every year around the world. And this isn't invoices and checks that chief financial officers are writing. This is money they're not getting. So just imagine what your company could do if your employees were engaged, if you had that productivity up, and if people were bringing their best selves every day. You could get a share of that 8.8 trillion or more. So this problem is disconnection. People are not feeling connected. And as a human race, many of us want to feel connected to something. We want to feel part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And when you go to work every day, you spend the vast majority of your waking moments working. You want to feel like you're doing something that matters. You're doing something that matters with people that you like, that you get on with a company that you believe in. A long time ago, a chap I worked for said that everyone wants to feel like they're a valued member on a winning team, on an inspiring mission. And that is so true. We want to feel that. And today, people don't feel that. So as a result, you'll hear people talking about quiet quitting all the time. That's still very much a big thing. Companies are filled with people who do their job to the bare minimum. They don't do extra time. They clock off at the end of the day without any hesitation or regret whatsoever. So to fix that, we need a different approach. We need to help people feel that connection, to help people feel like they're part of something. And as part of that, Mike, you're going to talk about assessments.
Absolutely. So we know that psychometric assessments provide value. They provide value in helping people make better recruitment decisions. They provide value when you've chosen that person, you're bringing them into the organization to make sure that that person gets the best possible onboarding and becomes a productive member of the team as quickly as possible. And we also know that they provide value helping people work better within the workplace. However, there are also some problems with the way that psychometrics assessments get used within the workplace. So one of the problems is they often get used at a particular point in time, which would then result in that sort of meeting resistance and skepticism. So that would be a bit like, hey, your team have a problem, take these assessments and we'll work out what's wrong with you. That narrative is never going to kind of land well, and that kind of makes people feel like it's almost being used against them in some of those use cases. It's also quite often that the assessments are only actually made available to a select few people within the organization. So it might be like an HR person or like an L&D person, maybe their hiring manager, but it's not something that's commonly used and available like throughout the organization. So that's the problem. So Matt, if you move on. So Thomas is now pioneering a different approach where everybody is empowered by these insights. So what that means is that everybody has access to unique, positive, personalized, and real-time insights. Everyone feels compelled to share that with their colleagues, and that these insights are then actually used to how we interact every single day so that we're more productive and we work more efficiently and effectively together. So Matt was talking through TO, Team Interaction Optimization. So what is TO? So TO uses proven people science-based insights into personality, behavioral profiles, aptitudes, and communication styles to inform each and every interaction underpinning the working day.
What does that actually mean? When we look at interactions, those are everything from bumping into somebody over a coffee in the kitchen to even potentially going to a coffee shop and talking to the barista behind the bar, to having a meeting, going on a big Zoom call, or other collaboration platforms are available. And to do that, you need to start by understanding yourself, and self-awareness is one of the biggest gifts we can ever receive. And TO really gives you that. It gives you those insights into yourself that help you to know yourself and be better. So knowing how you react to stress, perhaps, what sort of role would be best suited to you? What are your strengths? Because strengths are something that we think we know our strengths, but 9 times out of 10, they're the hard technical strengths. You know that you're good at perhaps coding in Python. You might know that you're really good at building things, chopping down trees, whatever. But what about your soft skill strengths? How do you know that you're actually an effective communicator, that you're perhaps good with people? And that really helps. But then knowing the same about some of your colleagues will give you even more power and enable you to get on better with them. So when you help an individual to feel seen, to feel trusted and empowered, that really does increase their engagement levels, and it helps people to feel like they're making progress, because that's really key to every single one of us. Some people are quite happy to come to work and just sit there every day pushing a button, doing the same thing day in, day out for 8.5 hours a day. But many of us want to make progress, and we get to the end of the day, and if you think, I haven't managed to do anything today, that really is demotivating and disempowering and disengaging. So by helping people to be engaged, to helping them to make more progress, that then adds benefits up throughout your business. So your team leaders can then have fully assembled cohesive teams of people that understand each other, that get on well, that work well together. They collaborate better together, they deliver more, they're more productive. And that then adds more benefits further up the chain to the business leaders. It makes their companies more agile. They can react more quickly to changes in market conditions and customer requirements. Their people tend to stay for longer, because people are still leaving businesses left, right, and centre. We know that. And they stay because the talent culture that you've built within your business by having and sharing these insights across the board makes it very aspirational. It's the place that people want to be and want to come. And when you look at the Thomas platform, this diagram on the right-hand side is what we call a marketecture diagram. So it's a way that we in marketing tend to try and simplify all the technical things that our colleagues in product produce to make it easier to understand, and hopefully relatively easy on the eye. So the Thomas platform is built on 3 key pillars. It's simplicity, insight, and trust. So the key with any good SaaS platform, and hopefully you'll agree that Thomas is one of those, is that it's easy to use, and then the things that are in there are easy to understand. And with Thomas, that's the deep insights that you get from our science, which is at the heart of our platform. So behavioural, aptitude and personality insights, all based on British Psychological Society validated science. So they give you really good insights into your people and into yourself, more importantly, as well. And because it's built on BPS science, it's trustworthy. We've been around for over 40 years. We've been doing this for tens of thousands of people all around the world, and we've had millions of assessments taken. And the Thomas platform consists of 2 main components at the moment. We've got what we call Thomas Perform, which is where our main users will log in. They'll use it to help them recruit, to develop and to manage their colleagues and to view their colleagues. And then we have the assessment takers platform, which is called Thomas Profile. And within there, candidates have a great experience. It's easy to use. It gives them insight through the reports that you get in there. And it enables them to give feedback on, actually, does what you say about me sound right? Does it sound like me? And if people say it doesn't sound like them, then we can then learn from that and adapt and change and make the platform better. And the platform's available in multiple languages. It can integrate with other platforms, HRIS as an example. It's got a knowledge base where you can read articles that are helpful. And it's also got some visualizations in there to help you to really see into people and to better understand who they are and how they work. Mike, back to you.
Wonderful, thank you. So this slide shows the value that Thomas provide to support individuals across their career journey. So this is highlighting that your journey starts with recruitment. It's really important that you hire the right people. It's then important that you onboard them correctly and that you've got the value there, all the way through to developing those people and making sure they stay with the company and they kind of work as efficiently and effectively as possible. But there's a lot of problems with this experience that people are seeing at the moment. So kind of starting at the beginning with recruitment, we know that 60% of new hires fail. So that very first threshold of we want to make sure we're bringing the right people in. It's not working. And we know that effective onboarding results in an 18 times greater commitment to the workplace, which is huge. 18 times the number is like a huge difference. And then kind of moving on to collaboration. So 71%, so the vast majority of HR leaders are concerned about employee collaboration. And consistently, the number one reason that employees leave a job is due to a lack of career development opportunities, which then totally ties into the fact that 45% of managers actually lack the confidence to help their staff develop. So what you can kind of see is all of these things are related. And it's not that we need to focus on one of them. These are all problems that need to be solved. So Matt, if you move on. So what we're now going to do is kind of run through a scenario where let's imagine that Matt and I work at the same company, but I don't necessarily know Matt. We might not have crossed paths before. So without TO, we might go into a meeting together for the first time. I don't really know what to expect. I've kind of got no idea, aside from his job title, what it's going to be like to communicate with Matt. So instead, if we then imagine that I've got access to a TO platform and I take a quick look, on my phone or on a desktop and kind of say, what am I expecting to see from this interaction with Matt? Is he going to be really direct, where he's going, if he's got an opinion, he's going to tell me his opinion? Or instead, is he likely to be the most informed and knowledgeable person in the room, but not necessarily the person that's going to express his opinion? And instead, it's really important to actually make sure that we proactively reach out to get that valued insight. Otherwise, we might miss it because of the people who are more direct actually taking control of the conversation. So before I go into the meeting, I can take a look. I can understand, what am I going to see in terms of Matt's behavior? What's his communication style going to be like? But also, more importantly, how should I adapt and adjust my behavior to get the most out of this interaction? So I already understand kind of what I'm like. I can see what Matt's like, but also the comparison between the two, where I can really start to understand what the dynamic's going to be and how we can get the most out of that interaction.
Absolutely. Now, I think maybe it's time for us to dive into the platform and actually show you what it looks like and some of the really cool things that you can do in the platform. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Mike to take the keys and drive.
Wonderful. So hopefully you can all see my screen. I can see Matt nodding. Great. So as I run through this, if there's any questions, if you put them in the Q&A box, and then what I might ask Matt to do at the end is to take a look at that and call out any particular questions that get asked that we could address. So I'm going to start off talking through a recruitment situation. So in that wheel, the first step was making sure that we hired the right people. So to do that, I'm going to create a new job role. So this is imagining that we're looking to hire a new person into the organization. So to do that, I start off by defining the role that I'm looking to hire for. So I'm just going to say this is a project manager role. Obviously, I can give it a description as well, just so I know, is it a remote role? Do I want to include a job spec? Just any information that's useful to the hiring team. I then get taken to a page that asks me a few questions just to understand a bit more about the learning environment for this position. So why we're asking these questions is to understand what kind of speed of learning is required for somebody to thrive and do well in this role. So down the left-hand side, we've got things like it's an entry-level role with no on-the-job learning, relatively slow-paced environment, relatively consistent role. Down the right-hand side is the exact opposite. It's a management role, constant learning. There's kind of a lot going on. And what this allows us to do is to match people's learning speed in terms of their aptitude to what's required for the role. If they exceed that, then great. They're going to get a good fit for the role. We can give them a good star rating, and we can highlight that they've got what they need. If they don't meet that threshold in terms of learning new concepts, we know from the data and from the research that this is one of the leading indicators that someone is going to struggle in that position and they aren't going to do particularly well, because they're going to feel out of their depth and potentially they're not going to meet the expectations that are set for that particular role. So for this project management role, I'm going to say it's an experienced hire. There's some initial learning, but it is a fast-paced environment, and the role is quite likely to change over time. We've got an idea of what it's going to be now, but maybe the org is going through some changes, and that will impact this role. So when I then move on, the last question that I get asked is to select the core characteristics that are required for this role. And there's a choice of 9. So there's things like, do you want somebody who's analytical, communicative, decisive, driven? And we're forced to select just 3 of these. So this is deliberately forcing you to think about what is most important for this role that you're hiring. So you might look at these and go, well, these are all really important. Obviously, we need someone that does all of them. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to differentiate between people in terms of the fit for the role. So if you're like a financial auditor, you might say, oh yeah, it's really important to have someone that's like collaborative and emotionally resilient. But you might also go, we kind of need someone that's analytical and process orientated. Like, we don't need someone that's particularly innovative. We want someone that really understands what the process is that needs to be followed, and they follow that process. If you're talking about a UX designer, quite likely you're going to be saying, oh, we want someone who's innovative, someone who's collaborative, and it's going to be very different things. What we often find is that selecting the first 1 or 2, pretty easy. The third one is where you start going, ooh, what's most important for the role? But this is where kind of the value comes in terms of matching candidates to the requirements for the position. If you're not certain what it is that you should be selecting, we've also got some templates which give common roles and the traits that the scientific research says most likely result in success for this position. So I think my example I was running through was a project manager, which is one of the templates we've got here. So this recommends analytical, driven, and innovative. So I'm going to go with that recommendation. If for whatever reason I felt like in our organization something else was more important, it's in my control. I can change it. I can pick something else. It's a suggestion. It's not being enforced. And that's kind of it in terms of setting up a job role. So this last screen is just a summary of what I've selected. And I'm then going to say, I want to go ahead and I want to create this role. So what I can then do with this job role, the first thing, if I was like an HR person setting this up, is I probably want to invite people to the hiring team. So if Matt was going to be on the hiring panel for this, I'd want to make sure that as soon as any candidates completed assessments, he's the one that gets notified. He's got access to this role. Potentially there's other roles he shouldn't be able to see, so I can just choose to share this one role with him. I'm not going to do that just to avoid spamming that. But once he's been added to that team, he gets a read-only view of this information, so he can see all of the candidates himself. So instead, I'm actually going to add some candidates. So I'm going to do a quick pretend that I'm going to invite some new people. Then I'm going to skip and just add some people that have already completed the assessments, so you don't have to watch me take them. So inviting new people, really straightforward and simple. You just need an email address. Nothing else. So we're not asking for names, we're not asking for gender, we're not asking for anything aside from an email address to send the invitation to. Optionally, on the next screen, what I can then do is, I then get to choose which assessments I would like this person to take. So we're not just looking at asking them to complete a behavior assessment so we can understand about their workplace behavior. Instead, what they can do is they can complete assessments that give insights into their behavior, their aptitude, which is their learning speed, and also their personality, which then means that the content that we provide can be blended based on all of those. So all of these different facets can give insights into how this person is going to operate and interact within the workplace. But where I was going was that the final screen allows you to put in a little personalized message, please could you complete this by this date, or that kind of information, or just like a introduction, welcome, and change the language as well. So this is defaulted to English, but you can send out invitations so that if you know that the person speaks a different language as their primary language, by changing that selection from the very beginning, the first email they receive will be in that language, and it's then up to them if they choose to change it throughout the journey. But it kind of means that even that first email is correct. I'm actually going to back up, and instead I'm just going to invite some people that have already completed the assessments. So by adding these candidates in, what we will see is that it will generate some star ratings, which I can then show. And this starts to show the difference between people when we're looking to recruit for this role. So we're comparing each of these candidates in terms of the assessments they've taken. So each of these people have taken the 3 assessments, and we're comparing it to this job role that I've defined. So in terms of this project manager role, who would be a good fit? What we can see is, first thing that kind of jumps out to me is from an aptitude perspective, Drake has got a much lower score than the others. He is quite likely to struggle with the pace, the speed, and the amount of learning that's required in this position. This doesn't necessarily mean we should just completely discount him, because maybe they've actually already got all of the skills that they need, they've built up through an entire career, and that they're in a different place in their career that means that there's less learning required of them in this particular position. But it's another bit of insight that we can use to make sure that we're making the right recruitment decisions. At the opposite extreme, we've got David, really good across the board, great score for aptitude, good behavior score, good personality score. So I can choose to see more information about David. So when I load up this view, I can see insights, both graphical as to where they sit, so I can compare people easily, but also text-based information, which means that if I've had no training at all, I've not had any in-depth understanding of psychometrics from previous roles or anything like that, I can read the text. I can kind of know what to expect from this person. And that's true of all the assessments. So I can see for the aptitude assessment, where did they do well? Where were they potentially worse? For the personality, where do they sit in terms of, oh, their adjustment is low. So what does that mean? That means they're quite likely to struggle under pressure with things like stress. They might potentially need a bit more support if they were in those environments. But also, this person's really competitive. What does that mean? How is that suitable for this role? So I can get insights into that. Kind of rattling through straight to the interview guide. So if we were looking to pull this person in, we've got a small amount of time to speak to David. We want to make the absolute most of the interview time that we've got. We've probably got some questions that we ask all candidates. And we've probably got some time set aside to make sure that we ask specific questions that are really tailored towards this individual. These questions have been recommended based on the fact that David is lower on the innovative characteristic compared to what we were looking for. So we've got a question that teases to that, which means that that small amount of interview time you've got to try and understand as much about this person as you can, you're getting the absolute most out of it. Rattling through this because I know we're short on time. So we've decided that we want to hire David. It's now really important that day one, when he lands in the organization, he gets the best possible onboarding. If I'm his line manager, that doesn't mean that I onboard him the way that I would like to be onboarded, because I might have a really high level of ambiguity acceptance. I might be fine with being told, hey, go try and work out what's going on and let me know if you've got any questions. That could be absolutely terrifying for somebody else, and they would feel really lost. So instead, this content allows you to understand, how does this person want to be onboarded? As that relationship develops, how does this person want to be managed? How do they want to be motivated? What do I do in order to make this person feel really engaged and want to be enjoying their work? And what you can see at the top, this is coming from multiple assessments. So this isn't just you've taken one assessment, we've given some insights off the back of that. We've taken insights from multiple different sources, blended them together, and given a really rounded view of the individual. The epitome of that would be something like decision making, where we're taking all of the assessments into consideration. We're pulling different bits of information from all of them, and we're making sure that we're giving you the most rounded information possible to understand what this person's approach to decision making will be. I'm just going to gloss straight over them, but we've also got things like resilience. How is this person going to react to stress? Clearly, lots of people, pretty much everyone at some point in their career is going to experience a high level of stress. And it's about understanding how to support that person, how to know, are they actually going to flag it themselves? If not, how do you identify it and make sure that you're supporting them in the way that they need? Matt, I've kind of rattled through all of that there. Is there anything else that you think that I should cover, or any questions that have come in?
So I think one thing to point out here is that all of this data, as we said earlier, it's not just for that point in time of hiring somebody. It's that you can go into remote working, for example, and see how somebody is going to work well, or how they're going to work in a remote or hybrid or distributed environment, but also what sort of support they might need. So this really does support that ongoing sort of management. And if you look at communication style, that really gives you the insights into how to interact with this person. So how will they be interacted? How will they interact with people? How can you improve your interactions with them? By understanding how somebody communicates, that means that actually you can reduce the impact of things like conflict, or the potential for conflict, because if this person, David, is very direct in their communication style, that might rub some people up the wrong way. And if you go in not knowing that and they're very direct, they put you on the back foot, and you suddenly might get a bit annoyed with them. That might then result in a bit of a bad feeling developing, which then builds into conflict, and which can then start to impact others around you and result in a toxic workplace culture. So knowing that and looking at how they deal with conflict as well can really help you to have those insights. Now, we did have a question about the experience for assessment takers. So if I've been invited to take an assessment by my line manager because he wants to get to know me better, and we're just introducing Tio into the business, what do I do, and how does that work?
Sure, absolutely. I can take that one. So up until now, I've been sharing dummy data that isn't real for fake candidates. I am comfortable sharing my own real information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch across to my experience taking it as a candidate, and you'll see the experience that I've received. So I was invited to take the assessments, which is why you can see that at least these two, they're kind of saying that I've actually already completed them. So this isn't just a case of me as a candidate. I take the assessment and then I have no idea, what's just happened? What's been told to this organization? Do I agree with it? There's literally no feedback there. It's not that at all. Instead, I can click on it, and what I can see here is insights into my behavior that have been determined from the assessments. So it's not the same information that we're showing to the customer, because we're writing this from the perspective of informing the candidate, but also helping them. So there's stuff here like development tips. So this is what it says about me. So this is my real data. As Matt said at the beginning, I'm extremely results orientated, getting a thrill from achieving goals and targets. However, that comes with some trade-offs. That sounds great to me. That really resonates. That definitely is me. But that's not necessarily something which I can't work on improving other aspects. So there's some development tips off the back of that. The other thing that I think you touched on earlier, Matt, but there's the opportunity to give feedback. So if I read this and I'm like, nah, this kind of sounds like me, but I'm not certain. I'm not sure I agree. You can give feedback here. And we have tens, if not hundreds of thousands now of bits of feedback about particular atoms of content that we can then go away and we can go, which are the bits that are doing best? Understand why those items of content are really working, really resonating. Which are the ones that aren't doing so well? And what can we do to make sure that we continuously improve that so that it does reflect people, it is a good reflection. And we have an amazing team of psychologists and content writers that are continually reviewing this feedback and making improvements and enhancements all the time. So I think that's probably it from showing the candidate experience. I don't know who asked the question, but hopefully that answered it. I guess the other thing just to call out is languages. That there are, I'm showing this in English because English is my native language. If anyone taking the assessments that's not, and you instead wanted to take the assessment in like French or Dutch, or view this content about yourself in a different language, absolutely you can, and the entire journey is customized to match those languages.
Fantastic, great. So should we maybe hop back to the presentation, and we can just end with a very quick here we go. Where has that gone? Let's go to this one. Here we go. So we've done the demo, and now let's have a look at the future of TO. Give us a little bit of a glimpse in your crystal ball, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess for context, my team work on the side of things which is improving workplace interactions. So I've kind of just talked about some of the recruitment and the onboarding, but actually what we're focused on is the piece where we're actually helping people within an organization work more effectively by collaborating and understanding their colleagues. And my team are delivering improvements to the product pretty much every few days, if not every day. So we're constantly iterating and learning to try and understand what the real customer needs are. So what are the problems that normal people face in the workplace just trying to do their jobs? So we do loads of interviews, and if anyone would like to reach out and speak to me, I would love to speak to you to understand your experiences. It's all about us understanding what the challenges that people face are, which are constantly evolving and changing, then understanding what the solutions are that we can do to solve those problems. And the key themes that we're seeing are kind of what you said to start with, Matt. People just want to feel like they're achieving something in their job. Like, it's not just about being employed, pressing a button and going, oh, it's okay. You want that sense of achievement. We need to then understand how we can make sure that we build that environment that means that people get that sense of fulfillment that they need, that they feel engaged, that everything is working exactly as they'd like. We also know from the research that human connection is a massive thing. It's not just a case of, oh yeah, we're achieving loads of work. Don't really know who any of my colleagues are, but in isolation, I'm doing a great job. Actually, in particular, since we've moved to remote and hybrid roles, even if you're not remote or hybrid, there's a good chance that if you're in the office every day, you're still interacting with people who are, and it's harder. It's much harder to get the human connection that was that kind of water cooler conversation in the past. And people feel like they've lost something. So where we're going with this in terms of like the future of TO is we're looking to solve these problems. So we're looking to solve the problems for everybody in the organization. So not just your hiring manager who's looking to bring somebody in, but every single person in the organization being able to understand themselves, understand their colleagues, but also understanding as a team, when you bring a group of people together, what does that mean? Not just in terms of insights, but actionable stuff. What do I actually have to do in order to improve the way that I interact with my colleagues, specifically tailored towards this group of people, these interactions or challenges that I face in the workplace? So that's the journey that we're on. We're already well on the way with this in terms of existing functionality and beta functionality that I know some people may have seen. But yeah, that's where we're going in terms of the future of this.
Indeed, and in fact, we aim in the future to be able to bring those into collaboration tools, for example, so that when you're going into a call with somebody like we are today, and as Mike did earlier, you can not just see how that person communicates, but you can do that comparison and get that advice to really help you to make the most of those interactions. So I think I know we're over time, and I know you're probably all very aware that we're over time.
There's one last pertinent question, Matt. There's one question that's come in which just says, looks great, when can I get access? So I think that's probably one for you to answer.
Indeed. So when can you get access? You can get access today. These are in there. Obviously, this particular screen is a mock-up. You can tell from the fact that it's got cartoons in there, not real people. But we do have functionality to provide people with the ability to compare themselves to others and get that sort of insight. So that is absolutely available. So if you're interested, get in touch today. Speak to your Thomas representative. If you don't have a Thomas representative, feel free to reach out to us. Myself and Mike are available. You can get hold of us through LinkedIn or Matt Johns at thomas.co or Mike B at thomas.co. We are available if you want to talk to us as well, or just go to www.thomas.co and find out more about this new work superpower called TIO. Ask as many questions as you like and sign up and start using it now and just see how it could help you to build a more engaged, collaborative and productive team. So all that remains to say is thank you, Mike, for taking the time to walk us through the platform today. Hopefully everyone found that really helpful. It's always good to see it in action, and particularly from one of the guys who's actually designing and building it, or having people build it for him rather. I know you've got a team of people who do all that sort of thing behind the scenes.
Credit goes to the team, not to me.
Absolutely. And a huge thank you for joining us today. It's been great to have you join us. The recording will be sent out along with other links. So any questions you've got, please get in touch. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.